Today we're going to walk through a really tragic story from Reddit. It's about love, loss, and how manipulation can have absolutely devastating consequences, especially when someone is at their most vulnerable.
Okay, just a quick but really important heads up before we dive in. The story we're about to cover gets very heavy. It deals with some incredibly sensitive topics, so please take care while you're listening.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our story starts with what should be a really happy, if, stressful, time for a young family. We've got a husband and wife just starting their life with a new baby. But right from the get-go, their foundation is already under a lot of strain.
So here's how it all started to unfold. In December, their baby is born, but the birth itself was pretty traumatic. By January, the wife is struggling with postpartum depression. Fast forward to July, the husband takes on this huge, high-pressure project at work to support the family, which means, of course, he's home a lot less. And then in August, a new person really enters the picture in a big way: the wife's best friend, Jessie.
Now, on the surface, Jessie seems like an absolute godsend. She's a stay-at-home mom, and she starts coming over all the time to help with the baby and just give the wife some company. It really looks like she's offering this much-needed lifeline during a super vulnerable time.
And then, one evening, it happens. The husband gets home, he's totally exhausted from work, and he goes to check on his daughter first thing. And that's when Jessie whispers this to his wife. A simple little observation, but she frames it as a sign. And that's the very first seed of doubt.
And that one little comment just snowballs. Jessie starts preying on the wife's anxieties, which are already through the roof because of her PPD. Every little thing, his long hours, the fact that his work project got extended, it all gets twisted into this so-called proof that he's having an affair. She's feeding this awful narrative of betrayal.
So it all comes to a head. The husband, desperate to prove his innocence, offers to show his wife his phone. And when she just nods, accepting his offer, he says something inside him just broke. It was that crushing realization that his wife, the person he trusts more than anyone, actually believed he was capable of betraying her. So he shows her everything: his phone, his work emails, even his pay stubs, to prove the overtime was real. And even though she says she believes him, the damage is already done. The poison had been dripped into their relationship, and once that suspicion is there, it's almost impossible to get rid of. The trust was just gone.
From there, things don't just get worse, they escalate dramatically. The whole situation builds to this terrifying breaking point where his entire world just completely unravels in the span of one single evening.
He comes home from work to find their bedroom and his home office have been totally ransacked, just torn apart. Papers everywhere, things thrown on the floor. It looked like they'd been robbed.
But that's not even the worst of it. What's way more terrifying is that his wife is gone, and their baby daughter is in her room crying all alone. She'd just been abandoned there.
When his wife finally returns, and get this, she's dropped off by Jessie, she is hysterical. She starts screaming that his recent decision to go to therapy wasn't for his own mental health, but that it was all just an elaborate front so he could meet up with a mistress who didn't even exist. Her paranoia had completely taken over. And in her rage, it gets physical. She attacks him, hard enough to break his nose. The argument, the paranoia, the suspicion, it all just boiled over into actual violence.
And this is a really key moment for him. He realizes that this violent, paranoid person in front of him, it isn't the woman he loves. It's a sickness. So for his own safety, and most importantly, for his daughter's safety, he knew he had to leave. He packs a bag and goes to his parents' house.
What follows next is just the most heartbreaking part of this entire story. That separation, which was meant to create safety and space, instead leads to something absolutely unthinkable.
So on Sunday night, his wife shows up at his parents' house, demanding to take their daughter. He has to refuse. He explains that it just isn't safe, not after she abandoned the baby and physically assaulted him. He even offers to let her see the baby right there, with the family present, but she refuses and storms off. And then, a few hours later, he gets the call. She had driven her car into a tree. She didn't survive.
So now he's in this fog of just immense grief and guilt. And right in the middle of it all, he's suddenly faced with a new, agonizing conflict that revolves around the funeral and the one person he blames for all of this.
And this is the exact question he posts on Reddit. Jesse, the friend who fanned all these flames of paranoia, has told him, not asked him, told him that she will be speaking at the funeral, and she'd already gotten his in-laws permission to do it.
I mean, look at this choice. It's just impossible. If he lets Jesse speak, he keeps the peace with his grieving in-laws, which is a vital support system for his daughter. But if he says no, he protects himself from that trauma, but he risks completely destroying his relationship with his late wife's family forever.
You can just feel the horror of the situation in his own words. The very idea of watching the person he holds responsible get up there and eulogize his wife, it literally makes him feel sick, but he feels totally trapped. So, completely overwhelmed by grief and just not trusting his own judgment anymore, he turned to the Reddit community for advice. And the response he got was just overwhelming, but it gave him the clarity he so desperately needed. The community gave him this outside, objective perspective at a time when his own was just clouded by grief and guilt. And their advice was so clear and practical. It all focused on two things: his own well-being and his daughter's long-term safety. They urged him to document everything, get therapy, and almost unanimously, they told him, do not let Jesse speak. Reading all those comments from strangers really convinced him that for his daughter's future safety, he needed an official record of what happened. This wasn't about getting revenge. It was about creating a documented history to protect his child down the line. So he went to the police station and he filed that report.
This whole terrible story really leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? The husband was trying so hard to support his wife through this awful illness, an illness that was being cruelly twisted by someone on the outside. And in the end, he was forced to choose between that support and protecting himself and his child. It really makes you wonder, where is that line between support and self-preservation? And how do you ever know when you've crossed it?